Hello, everyone. Welcome back to No Time for Burnout. If you've been here before, thank you so much for being here again. And thank you to everyone who's provided feedback and comments so far. It's been really, really helpful to hear from you. And if this is the first episode that you're tuning into, welcome. Welcome to No Time for Burnout. My name's Sophie Anderson. I'm a burnout prevention specialist. I have never burnt out myself, but I've come close a couple of times. And now I have developed a model and a framework and an approach. I coach people, I do speaking, workshops, and I've just started this podcast to help more people avoid burnout. I hear a lot of people saying they're burning out or they have burnt out. It's a very scary place to be. And there's not much out there to prevent burnout. So that's why I started the podcast, so that more people can learn how to look after themselves and to let go of some of the things that we're used to doing and embrace new ways to be and new ways to do, so that we don't have to be part of the stats. In Australia, up to 80% of the workforce is saying that they're burnt out or they're burning out. It's too much. It's too much for many reasons. So let's dig in. The first thing I want to do is to say thank you to Caroline and other people listening into the podcast. Caroline is my sister, and other people have provided feedback on a couple of my episodes, and one of them being The Art of Saying No, which is an article I wrote for the Connect magazine. And I was talking about the art of saying no. And a lot of people said, you've convinced me. I really want to say no, but how? Can you tell us more about it beyond the article? This is what this episode is about. We're going to be talking about specific ways that it shows up. Why do we say yes when we mean to say no? And I'm going to give you a few different things to explore to start saying no. So as always, I have dot points. So if I'm on camera and you see me looking down, that's why. I just try to stay on track. If you're familiar with my model, when we tend to say yes a lot, we are typically in the overfunctioning zone. The overfunctioning zone is the second zone towards burnout. There are 3 zones to the model, and there will be a link in the show notes to have a look at the model and the framework. But briefly, the overfunctioning zone is when we're in work mode pretty much all the time. We're always productive. From the outside, we're smashing it. Inside, we're quite proud of ourselves. We're really productive. But this is where we also struggle with boundaries, with delegation a lot. This is where chronic stress is present. And it's also typically where we're in chronic people pleasing. And we also use a lot of coping strategies. For example, coffee and Red Bull and lollies maybe during the day to stay awake and to stay productive. And at night, we might just drink the bottle of wine to wind down. And our sleep is also affected in that zone, and we're hyper vigilant. We want to know everything. So from the outside, it's what we call invisible burnout. People don't know. Often individuals themselves, the women themselves, don't know that they're burning out because they're smashing it. They're really, really productive. The main signs that this is not just being a high functioning individual, but that you're in high functioning burnout is often our relationships are starting to be affected. So our loved ones are talking to us and we're not really there. We also start to feel resentment towards the people who add to our to-do list because we already have a lot. We notice that we have less time for ourselves. We're always doing, but there's rarely any time left for ourselves, and especially for rest. There's very little. And the other side of things is we're still carrying the weight of the first zone, the activation zone. A lot of people in overfunctioning zone, though, have chronic headaches, a lot of tension in their body. They're more snappy with people. They feel like they're not quite themselves. But this is the zone that is really dangerous because we think, it'll pass. It's just a busy patch. I just got to get this thing out of the way. And often people can be in overfunctioning zone for a very, very long time. So learning to say no is a really, really important step in stabilizing ourselves in the overfunctioning zone, hopefully jumping back up to the activation zone or getting out of the model and being only in burnout prevention mode. The goal of this episode here is to reduce the demands. So if you remember, burnout starts with an imbalance between our demands and our resources. We have too much to do with not enough time, energy, support. And the goal of this episode, learning to say no to ourselves and to other people, is to have less on our plate, essentially, to not take extra. Some of the main reasons why we find it difficult to say no is social conditioning. It's seen as being really kind, really helpful, and it's praised to say yes all the time. People will thank you, they will appreciate you. And when you start saying no, you will see that some people will be upset about it because they stop getting what they wanted. But the right people, the people who are emotionally intelligent and the people who deserve to be in your circle, they will still be there. So it's important to know that society and our culture is making it a little bit hard to say no to people because it is praised and it is obviously appreciated if you're there to help people. But when we recognize that it's affecting our health and our well-being, it's time to do something. Another reason is fear of missing out, FOMO. And this is like reverse worry. When we're in worry mode, we're worrying about the worst possible outcome. And when we're in FOMO, we're worrying that we're going to miss out on a positive outcome. So we're going to address this as well. Another reason can be the fear of disappointing people, especially the leaders I coach, the people I coach. They're just always there for their team. They soldier on. They will fill in for people. They will take the extra work to protect others, to stop others from burning out. And in some work environments, people are not really mature, or it's not a very healthy work environment. And then people will be angry or disappointed if you say no to taking on extra work, for example. And the other reason is really interesting. I've just learned it from an article on psychology, and it's the superhero complex. And it's the need to help, to rescue or fix others to gain praise or self-worth. And I must admit that when I dig into my personal needs, I have a need to be needed. I need to feel needed. So beyond contributing, which is another need that I have, I need to feel like I'm making a difference. I'm turning something average into something good. I'm helping people when they're not well. It's really hard for me not to jump into advice mode. I know better, but to just give advice. But it's hard for me because I love to contribute. But most importantly, if someone's in need and they don't ask me for help, that hurts me. Needs are not always healthy, right? So I ask people if they need help all the time. When we have the superhero complex, we have a need to be praised. We have a need for people to be like, you have done such a positive difference. We want to hear it. Hearing it makes us feel worthy. We don't innately feel worthy if we don't hear it. And it can give us the superhero complex. We want to fix everything and we want to be everywhere. And the expression doesn't matter, but knowing that it's a psychology term and expression and condition, which is so interesting because a lot of my clients have that. They want to be CC'd in all the emails. They want to be in all the meetings. It's really hard for them to delegate and to say no. Some of the areas where you might want to explore whether a yes could become a no are things like volunteering, dog sitting or babysitting for people, filling in for people who are on holidays at work. If you're always the person, I swear I have clients who are filling in for 3 people at a time sometimes, plus their own role. That's a true story. And maybe that's one of you. Please let me know. And also answering just a quick question. I'm doing inverted commas for those of you who are not on camera. People will pop their head in your office or call you and say, it's just a quick question. But it's rarely a quick question, right? It's a 30-minute story. And when you're mid-task, you lose your focus, you're on a deadline and things like that. And in the workplace, there is something that's really trendy, and it's the open door policy. And it means anyone can come in your office and vent and ask you a question or talk about an opportunity. And it is very detrimental to leaders, but also employees' productivity and well-being and focus. It's extremely frustrating, the open door policy. The thing is, the more we say yes, the more we condition people around this. They expect that we will say yes as well. So 2 things. They will be disappointed when we start saying no. They'll be like, who are you? And they also stop solving their own problems. So something I do get as feedback from my leaders when they start saying no and it's uncomfortable, they say people are not coming to me with their problems anymore. They solve them. Right? At first, it's scary. It's like, oh, well, now they know that they can't rely on me. They know I'm not there for them and they get scared. They're like, I've given up on them. And then they realize that's not it's because people have started asking themselves the question and trying to solve the problem on their own instead of coming to them with a simple question or even a complex question. So if, for example, you always cover for people on leave and you do it really well because you overwork, you neglect your own tasks and your own well-being as well, then you train people to keep coming to you. If you always let people vent to you, right? They're like, oh, can I come in? I just need a rant. I just need a vent. If you like it, go you. But if it's to your detriment, it drains your energy. You miss out on precious time to do your important work. It's time to say no to those things, to say no to filling in for people and to let people vent to you when they're unwell. And we'll get to how soon. The thing with a lot of people is it becomes part of their identity to say yes for themselves and for people in the workplace as well. They are used to them always saying yes, always taking on work, always answering their phone. So the first thing you have to do is to think about, well, what's your new identity then? Who do you want to become? What kind of person do you want to become? And the fear of my leaders, of the people I coach is they don't want to be despised. They don't want to be rejected. They don't want to seem like someone who doesn't care anymore. You can list all the things you don't want to be, but what do you want to be? Who do you want to become? You want to look like someone who's confident. You want to look like someone who's organized, right? You want to look like someone who's got her stuff together and who knows that right now it doesn't fit in her schedule because her schedule is very clear. You want to look like someone who cares about her team, but who also cares about her. You want to be a role model. You really want your team to be able to say no so that they can complete their task. So you need to be a role model as well. This is your new identity. One thing that's really important to remember is that self-respect attracts respect. Think of a leader that you've had in the past that you had a lot of respect for. I am 99.9% sure that this leader had strong boundaries. They were able to say no, and you knew what not to go to them for, what not to ask. You knew what was going to be a no. So you can become that leader. Self-respect attracts respect. And it's important to know that it's not necessarily no. And this is not something I've mentioned before, but when I'm talking about saying no, it's not someone comes in, can you fill in for Susan? She's going on leave. No, that's not what I mean. I mean things like, I can't right now, or let me have a look at my projects, or, well, I've already laid my schedule for the next 2 weeks. And it's full because of project A and project B, the delivery. What do you suggest? Or it can be for babysitting, for example, or smaller things maybe outside the workplace, or volunteering to do 300 cupcakes for the school fete. You can say, not this time. I really love doing it the last 15 years. This year, I can't. Or saying maybe. You can say maybe if you mean it, not just because it's too hard to say no. Okay? I don't suggest doing that. If your body is screaming for no, find a way to say no, or not this time, or I'd love to, but I can't. But you can say maybe if you actually genuinely need to check your schedule to work out things before you say yes. Taking time for the pause is something that Brené Brown, among others, have talked about a lot. And it's just making time to reflect for a few seconds before we answer. That's really helpful to get our thoughts together instead of jumping straight to, yes, of course you can come into the office. Of course, I have 5 minutes. When you clearly don't, you could wait and say, what are we going to talk about? Or what do you need me for? Can you prepare me? And then if someone asks you to take over a project or to do something for them, you could ask them, why are you coming to me with this today? What's happened? Or who else would be equipped to do this, you think? Or why am I the right person to do this? So to come back to them with a question instead of a no is also a very smart option. And we were talking about the open door policy. I teach my clients the half open door policy, which means there's boundary or there's structures in place. If they have an executive assistant, I will have the executive assistant act as a filter. Sometimes they will have a little sign on the door saying, in focus work, please don't come in. And by the way, that's the same with Teams or Slack. A lot of my leaders, when I worked in corporate for 25 years, they would look offline, but you'd message them and they'd reply. So we never really cared that they looked offline because even if they were at home, they would still reply. So this is just what they had attracted. And that's on them, right? Because it's on them to teach us to not text them, which they didn't. And it's also on them not to reply. So I'm saying that with a smile, a cheeky smile, because gosh, I remember those leaders. They were so beautiful. And I would probably coach them now because they were so generous with their time and their energy. But the half open door policy is not about pushing people away. I never want you to push people away. I never want you to become the leader that people don't ask any question because you always say no. I want you to become someone confident, someone who knows the time that they have for people, someone who has structures and systems in place to say yes and to say no. Next time you say yes, have a quick check, just a quick internal check, considering everything I've spoken about. Did I say yes out of fear? Was that out of fear of missing out? Or was it out of fear of disappointing them, making them upset? Was it just out of habit? It was just a reflex because I've always done it and I forgot to pause. Then that's fine. You can learn, you can try again next time. Or is it the superhero complex as well that they came in and you're like, I just really want to help. I just really want to be the one who saves the day because it feels really good. And then when you say yes, have a quick think about what you've said no to. If you've said yes to filling in for Susie, did you just say no to your weekend camping? Did you just say no to your quiet evening with your spouse? What did you just say no to? Maybe good night's sleep or leaving on time for the next couple of weeks. And are you at peace with that? James Clear calls it voting for yourself. He says, every action you take is a vote for the person you want to become, I think is how he says it. Apologies if it's different. Are you voting for yourself when you say yes? Did it feel good? Did it feel bad? Is resentment building? Are you more upset at yourself or at them? And so some of the solutions we've named, like taking a pause, making sure that next time you have boundaries in place. Oh, when that happens again, I'm going to do that. Or you could also change your answer. If you realize that the cost of that yes is huge and it's going to impact your well-being, your family, you can go back and say, I said yes really quickly. You can talk about the podcast and say, I'm learning to say no. And I would like to think about it, or I would like to negotiate this and only fill in for a week instead of 2. Okay, so no is not necessarily going, no, I'm out, I'm not helping anymore, and I'm selfish. It's about giving ourselves permission to also say yes to ourselves sometimes. Now, we're talking about saying yes and saying no to ourselves as well. So make sure you also, when you say yes to yourself with things that deplete your energy, with things that take a lot of your time and actually don't add to the quality of your life, that you start to practice saying no to yourself. You know what they are. The main things I hear from my clients are eating out, wine, like a bottle of wine in the evening, endless scrolling. So all those things that we say yes to because we're free. There's no one watching us when we're adults. And it's almost like the curse of adult freedom is we can do whatever we want with our time. And when we start to be more self-aware and take leadership of our life, we realize, okay, well, it's not so good to make that decision. Where can you start saying no to yourself as well and go, I had promised myself I would exercise Saturday morning. If I'm having that bottle of wine, I definitely won't, and I'll be disappointed. So I'll say no. Or even with others, I had promised myself that I would spend quality time journaling or spending time with my spouse, and they're asking me to babysit. So I'm going to say no. And you can explain, I had decided I was going to take an evening for myself, looking after myself. I've been really depleted, really tired. So normally I would say yes. And I'm sorry if it inconveniences you, but I'm going to say no this time for babysitting. When the decision is reasonable and it's delivered respectfully, you can apologize. You can absolutely validate people's feeling. Like, I do understand that this is upsetting or it's disappointing for you, or I understand you have no one else, but I still stick to saying no because I can't. I don't have capacity. You don't need to explain why you're saying no, for going somewhere, for helping someone, for dog sitting, for volunteering. A lot of us will stop ourselves from saying no because we're trying to find an excuse or to find a reason that sounds legit, and there's none. And we hate lying. So we're like, I really don't have a good reason. It's almost like our well-being is not a good enough reason. And your well-being is a good enough reason. If you need permission, take it from me. Your well-being is a good enough reason to say no, not to become selfish, not to throw everyone out of your life and to stop looking after others, but to start looking after yourself. You don't need to justify why you can't do something. People, to me anyway, they never ask why. And if they do at the start, because they're used to you saying yes, maybe they will. Or if they're, your spouse or your children or people who are really close to you or people who have no emotional intelligence, they might ask you, oh, why? And you can say, I just can't. Try it. And if it's too hard, let me know and I'll help you find other ways. If you have a specific situation where you're rolling your eyes going, oh, she has no clue, please comment or contact me and I'll help you troubleshoot your situation. So things that you can start saying no to yourself are like checking emails when you're on sick leave or on annual leave, because that's saying no to yourself, saying no to healing. My new one is to turn my alarm off on the weekend. I've had my alarm on at 5:10 every morning, 7 days a week for 6 years since I stopped drinking. And I wanted to make the most out of my day. And now I realize I don't need to do that Saturday, Sunday. I'm still up at 6 anyway. But that was the latest no that I gave myself. And I thought it was so funny. I'm still, peeling the layers of being hard on myself and wanting to be productive and win the day every day. And endless scrolling as well is a popular one that my clients say I am stopping that. They will remove the app or they'll put a timer in their phone and things like that. Remember to start saying no or maybe, or I'll think about it, or asking question despite the guilt. Don't wait for the guilt to go away. It might not. Just practice. Treat it as an experiment and see what benefits you get from doing that. Start with your personal no's. Just like boundaries, it's always easier to start with ourselves. We start to say no to ourselves for a few things that help our well-being, and then we build from there, and then we can start going out in the world and saying no a little bit more. Remember that self-respect invites respect, and link it back to what I call the self-care formula. Does it deplete your energy or does it give you energy? And does it look after your future self? Does it make you healthier and better in the future or not? This can be a really good indicator of whether you should say yes or no to something. Energy and future self. I hope that was helpful. If you still have questions, please let me know. Please comment, follow my show. And if you know anyone who needs to look after themselves, someone that you love and you don't want them to burn out, please send them my way on this podcast or on my website, sophieanderson.au. I really hope to spread the word and help as many people as possible prevent burnout. Have a great day.